And we're back with our next chapter of the Box Office Bomb series. Chapter 123, which is the 2016's Ghostbusters, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call. What a terrible tagline. Like, what mental genius decided Answer the Call as the tagline for that movie? Gosh. It made the posters look worse. But yeah, this one was coming, and like this is one of those few times where something is so polarizing that you either absolutely love this product, like you would, have sex with this play in the background. That's how good this is. Or it is so awful that you would use it to scare away like a demon. Like that's like the polarizing effect this movie has. I mean, there's like no middle grounds. Like, from people I've talked to, they either absolutely love it, this is better than drugs and sex and whatnot, or it's just like, this is the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. And so, like, I'm going to piss someone off today. Like, this, Last of Us Part 2, and, like, what else? There was, like, something else like that. I can't think of it, but, Last Jedi. Like, these three products are just, like, there's no one's like, it was okay. I liked it. But it wasn't amazing. There's no one like that with any of these movies. It's all just like, this is the greatest thing ever, or this is the worst thing ever. So, I mean, it's just like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. But let's go over the ground rules first. If you haven't seen anything in the series, so I'm doing every box office bomb I found on the Wikipedia page of the biggest box office bombs of all time. At the time of this recording, it's at 127. They add new stuff every day because we're getting more and more bombs more frequently than we used to. And how it works is, if something comes in behind where I'm at, so like something comes in at number 100 and I'm at 77, I'm not going to cover it. But if something comes in front of where I'm at like number 50, I will cover it. It doesn't work in this traditional way where it's like, okay, any new one add to the list is 127, 128. It doesn't work like that. It's kind of like in terms of how much it lost. So, because if I was to just cover every single thing when it's added, it would be so convoluted on this channel, and I'd be doing this forever. So I do want a potential end to this series. I can always go back through and do ones that I didn't cover after the fact. But going to the ground rules, I have to try at least everything if I haven't seen it before. And I reserve the right to walk out of something if I can't get through it. So there's already one on this list I watched that I couldn't get through. This isn't it. But let's go over the numbers. So, Ghostbusters or Ghostbusters 2016 or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, worst title of the three. Just call it Ghostbusters 2016. It had a budget of $144 million. And it had a box office of $229.1 million. Now, you would think, oh, wow, that did really good. How is this a bomb? Problem is advertising. Advertising is almost always where you get caught. Advertising, as a general rule, it's always the same amount as the budget. So 144 for the budget, and then added another 144 for the advertising. That brings you to having to make $288 million just to break even. Box office was 229, so it did not meet expectations. And a little bit more specific is it's estimated to have lost $75 million, or by today's numbers, $85 million. I know a lot of the past videos, it's been the same thing. 75 million loss, 85 adjusted inflation. That's going to change soon, I promise you. You can always look at the Wikipedia page to see what's coming next. But, you know, if you're not feeling like that, you can just kind of, like, go along with the show. It's like, okay, I wonder what he'll do next week. Or, I don't know if I'm doing this weekly or not. But, yeah, so this was technically a bomb. And one reason a lot of people will automatically just attached to is that, oh, well, the reason why it's bombed is because men are sexist and men couldn't handle a female-led movie, and just because there was a female lead in it, they couldn't handle it. Yeah, no. If that was the case, Alien would never have gotten a sequel, Terminator would have never gotten a sequel, Underworld would have never gotten a sequel. Like, I could list off probably close to 100 movies that would have never got a sequel because they had female leads in them. The whole female aspect, yes, were there trolls like saying, I don't want my Ghostbusters women? Probably. I'm not going to say that didn't happen. But the reason why this didn't work was not because of sexism. Okay? Now, you want to say the reason why this worked is because the producers and filmmakers were calling everyone sexist. You could say that. But I don't think it was sexism. I don't even think it was the producers and director and actors calling everyone sexist. I don't think that's why this movie failed. Because if you look at the box office number, this movie made $229 million. Like, that is an impressive profit right there. If they could have just kept the budget down to like $110 million, then they would have been able to break even. But the problem is that they were very fast and loose with their money on this film. I found like one report showing that they did this entire dance sequence, like an 8-minute long dance sequence in like downtown New York with Chris Hemsworth and all of these extras dressed as cops and military, and it cost them like somewhere in the ballpark of like $50 million. And the only time you can see this is either in a deleted scene or in the end credits. Like, if I was in charge of that movie, I would have said, if we're not putting this in the movie, cut it. Okay, let's not even film it because it's going to waste a lot of money. And like I heard, I think I heard $50 million that scene cost. I don't know if that's true. It may not be true. I'll try and find the actual number. But the fact that they were filming scenes that they just cut or barely used, it's like, yeah, they spent way too much money on this movie. I mean, just for example, how much did Afterlife cost? The movie that came out after it. It cost them $75 million to do Afterlife. Now, granted, Afterlife did not take place in New York City. Filming in a major city, especially New York, is really expensive. But you look at Afterlife, it only cost $75 million to make, and they had a box office of $204 million. Now, that is smaller than Ghostbusters 2016. But because the budget was smaller, Afterlife had a profit. And that's one of the things that a lot of people just overlook or don't get, is that, yes, it's amazing it made $229 million. That's really impressive. You say that to anyone on the street, it's like, oh, wow, that's good for that movie. No, it's not, because they blew $144 million, where its sequel, The Apology movie, I like to call it, it only cost $75 million. And, like, you probably could have made the 2016 Ghostbusters around there if they cut a couple of the bigger scenes. Like, okay, did we really need a concert scene in 2016's Ghostbusters? I think that was kind of unnecessary, cost a little bit too much money. You could have easily done that a person's home or a mansion, upstate New York. You could have done that restaurant. You could have had the shop that Melissa McCarthy's character gets all of her food from, and but granted, she was living upstairs from it. But, I mean, you could have had it in the original Firehouse Station. I mean, like, hell, you could have done so many scenes instead of having to hire all those extras. Having that stage setup, all the instruments. I mean, that was not a cheap scene to make. And it's one of the weaker, more annoying scenes in the movie. It's like, that's one of the low points of the movie. So if they were just a little bit more frugal with the money on this movie, they would have had a hit on their hands. But no, they kind of just spent like crazy. Now, I did not really enjoy this movie, not because it had an all-female cast. I like Kate McKinnon, I like Leslie Jones. They usually have a direct line to my funny bone. But I will say Kate McKinnon was really fucking overacting in this movie. Like, there's just a couple of lines. It's just like, hey, Kate, would you like to do that again? Like, that really fucking sucked. You want to do that again? I know you can deliver that line just fine. But, I mean, like, no, there's just a couple of times she just overacted. But no, like, I liked her. I liked Leslie Jones. I thought they were okay. Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig, they never really made me laugh, like, just ever. I mean, they're okay. I wouldn't say that they ruined the movie, but it would be unfair of me not to say that a lot of the jokes do not land. And so, my biggest criticism of this movie was not the cast. It was the disrespect to what came before. You basically have a series that had 2 movies, and you felt the need to just restart. Like, the reason why I think Afterlife was such a success is because Afterlife was like, oh, you kids don't know what the Ghostbusters are? And, like, Paul Rudd pulls out a cell phone. It's like, yeah, it was this group of guys in the 80s. And, like, you know, they were fighting ghosts. And they just kind of like, that's what the audience wanted with 2016. If they had just had a scene where, like, Kate McKinnon found the old proton pack. It's like, oh, wow, what a cool design. I could do some improvements there, and there. And, you know, and it's like, hey, we found this place that has this crazy logo, and there's this old ambulance, and, like, who ran this? Like, hey, guys, let's use this. I think 2016 would have been a much bigger success, but the fact that they acted like, no, they didn't make it. We made it. We made the proton packs. We made the logo. We are the Ghostbusters. There was never Ghostbusters for us. It kind of threw fans off the wrong way. It's like, why are you doing that? It's ridiculous. It's like, what, are we out of ghost stories? We couldn't have come up with a new ghost story? Like, we're just so fresh out of ideas, we're just going to do a remake of the original story? And so, like, that ultimately I felt was the movie's downfall. When I watched this again with someone, literally the person said, this sucks. This is a terrible movie. And, like, some of the jokes just do not land. Now, I will give credit due. I absolutely loved Chris Hemsworth in this movie. He plays the perfect dumb blonde. I mean, oh my gosh. I could use an entire movie where Chris Hemsworth is just an idiot. You know, like a sort of Big Trouble in Little China type of deal where he plays the big idiot that's, like, not the central focus of the movie, but it's the central focus of what the audience is following. Because if you don't know Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell's character was meant to be a John Wayne type character that didn't have a clue. And, like, watching it again, it's like, yeah, he has no clue. Like, he does not contribute that much. But it would be fun seeing, like, Chris Hemsworth in a sort of, like, Big Trouble in Little China type thing where he's just the biggest idiot in the room, but the movie follows him. And so, some of the CGI was good in this, but some of it was a miss. I have to acknowledge that. Like, the Slimer return looked great, but some of the other ghosts is just like, you really did not give the CGI team enough time on that, did you? And so, ultimately, I think this did kind of deserve to be a bomb, simply because of the piss poor management of money. If they were just a little bit smarter with their money, they could have made that $229 million profit a success. But no, they spent $144 million. I mean, there were so many scenes in this movie that I could have cut from, like, the script, save the money, and even if this still had all the scandal of, like, oh, everyone's sexist, it still would have made a shit ton of money and been a huge success. But no, because they blew money on an unused dance scene and they had scenes take place in extravagant locations, it just ultimately was this movie's downfall. And so, if you don't know how to properly spend your money, then yeah, you deserve to be a bomb. And so, yeah, that's been my thoughts on Ghostbusters 2016. This is number 123 on the box office bomb list. My name is Christopher Carr with 11 Hour Reviews, and that will be all.